Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 338. Your weekly we'll get together to talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Tim Brown, and tonight we're going to go over a few highlights from the Game Awards. Keep in mind, I'm not going to do a comprehensive review of it. I'm just going to talk about the things that I saw that caught my personal interest. Of course, yours may vary. We're going to talk about how the FTC is going up against Microsoft, and we're going to ask and get into a little bit of the topic that's been going around with John Garvin's rants on Twitter recently on whether or not Days Gone failed because of wokeism. All of that and a little bit more in just a moment. But first, I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching us live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints or later over at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be it YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc., feel free to join the conversation with any questions, comments, concerns, etc. you might have. Just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. All right. Now that the preamble's out of the way, let's go ahead and start things off with the Game Awards, which were held last Thursday. God of War winning multiple awards, but Game of the Year itself going to the Elden Ring, I should say, not the Elden Ring. Honestly, I know what you guys are here for. Most of you aren't here for the known who won what. Most of you are here for what was announced. And some quality stuff was shown off. But first, let's go ahead and get into what I felt was the most touching moment of the entire night, just to kind of get things on a right foot, or a positive foot, I should say. And I want to talk about this right here. This is Al Pacino being embraced by Kratos voice actor Christopher Judge after Al Pacino came and presented the best award for best performance in a video game, which Christopher Judge won from God of War. Christopher Judge gets on there on the stage. Al Pacino hands him the award. He starts walking away. Christopher Judge, who just towers over Al Pacino, grabs him, pulls him back, hugs him. You can tell he was just jazzed to meet the man, to be able to get an award from him. And then he goes off on his acceptance speech, which goes on for like 10 minutes or some ridiculously long number, to the point where it was clear that they had the people doing the award show had no way to get people off the stage. And then eventually they went, hell, let's just try to play music to get him off. And he just kept going. So the music kept getting louder and louder and louder, to the point where it's starting to get embarrassing. Christopher Judge, I want to say he was clearly emotional, but he also might have been a little high, allegedly, just from the way he was speaking. And that's my take. He might not have been. He could have just been very nervous. But it is interesting to see this kind of an award show have such a long, some would say meandering acceptance speech. More power to him. I'm kind of glad that they did let him go on for longer than they probably should have. Even after they did try to go, okay, wrap it up, it was very well into it. So they were going to give him a lot of time. He just kind of took that and ran. But I did think that this was very cute. It was a very touching moment to see. And I hope to get more moments like this from the Game Awards in the future. I'm not talking about the 10-minute acknowledgement spiel that Christopher Judge gave, but just this moment of happiness that you can clearly see on Judge's face there. Pacino, of course, wondering what the hell he's still doing here, because he was staying on stage as Judge was talking. You kind of see him kind of going, what's going on here? They should be getting him off there. But I thought this was a nice moment. You also, of course, I don't know if it was a nice moment, but while we're talking about moments, let's not forget the kid that somehow worked his way up to the Death Stranding, or not Death Stranding, Elden Ring acceptance for Game of the Year. And he was standing with the FromSoft guys and then rambled off something at the end. You could find thousands of memes on him. I'm not going to get too much into that. But I thought this was probably the more positive moment of the Game Awards. All right, let's talk about announcements. First up, Hades 2. Oh man, does Hades 2 look good. Hey there, Watermelon, how are you doing? Supergiant announced that they're going to be making their first ever sequel by releasing a follow-up to their beloved, both critically and commercially, I believe, Hades, which was fantastic if you didn't get a chance to play it. It also seems they're going to be following a similar release where they're going to be opened up into early access sometime in 2023 and then filling it in as time goes on. I don't know why. 1 second. I can fix that, though. Not a problem. Technical issues on my end. If you're watching this later, don't worry about it. There we go. Handled. Hades 2, Supergiant can do no wrong. Their weakest game, Pyre, in my opinion, is still better than a lot of other shit that's out there right now. I am really looking forward to playing this. My only concern is, while I adored Hades, can they capture that lightning in a bottle again? Now, sorry, my throat's drying out. Supergiant is known for creating brand new IP. They've never gone back to do a sequel to anything yet. Bastion, Transistor, Spire, Hades. But Hades is, I think, the one that they really got a claim for. So it makes sense that they would go back to it. I just don't know if it can hold my attention again. I'm afraid that too much of a good thing might lessen the first one. And that tends to happen with sequels sometimes. You get a game, it's great. You get a second game, and they only change a little bit to it, or maybe they add some extra to it, and it's good, but not as great as that first one. And then every sequel that follows is somewhat lesser, without like a massive reinvention. And I do trust Supergiant. I am excited for Hades 2. I will admit I'm a little disappointed that it's not a brand new IP, but I am very much looking forward to what they have coming out for this. Also showing up, I didn't get a slide ready for it because for some reason my brain just tuned out on it. You had Ken Levine's game finally announced, Judas. I'm not going to get into it now because I don't have any notes set aside for it, but it just popped in my head. I can't believe I forgot goddamn Judas. So if everyone's wondering where's Judas, I was an idiot and forgot it in my notes. Also out this week, or not out this week, shown off on the Game Awards, Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. Now, we had another trailer for this come out. No gameplay. I'm at the point where I kind of want to see how this game is going to run. And I'm a little bothered that I'm not seeing that yet. However, it's, I think, a little obvious why they showed this specific trailer. Because while they're standing around talking about what to do with a Flash, they just beat the holy hell out of, and he's unconscious, and Captain Boomerang's haunting him. You hear Batman, and Batman comes in clearly taken over by Brainiac. But more importantly, Batman is voiced by Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy being the voice actor for Batman in many animated media and video games since the early 90s, recently died a few weeks ago. And to hear that he had his lines already recorded for Suicide Squad, I hope that this game is excellent. And I have no doubt it won't be, because Rocksteady made 3 excellent Batman games with Asylum City and Night. I know mixed feelings about Night, but that game overall, in my opinion, was still excellent. I hope this is a fitting swan song out for Kevin Conroy. I hope that he ends his performance as the Cape Crusader on a high note. And I would hate for the last thing he did as Batman be a dud. And I don't think it's going to be. But I get the distinct feeling one of the reasons why they ran this trailer specifically was because of the Kevin Conroy connection. Now, they could have had something else planned. They could have been showing off gameplay finally. But due to Conroy's unfortunate and untimely death, they did show this one as kind of like a tribute. They even ended up with saying, like, "We miss you, Kevin," or something along those lines. If anything, my interest in this game has gone up even higher now, knowing that. Also, something to note, this is in the same Arkham universe, and Batman is believed to be dead. So they're going to be rolling him out somehow. There's going to have some justification how he survived the Nightfall Protocol at the end of Arkham Knight. Which, hey, we all know he was going to be alive, right? It's not like Bruce Wayne's going to blow himself up or anything like that. But it'll be interesting to see how they address that in this game. It's one of those unanswered questions from the Arkham series we never got around to seeing. Other things that were interesting that I want to mention up real quick. We had Jedi Survivor show off a little bit of extra gameplay, dated for March 15th of 2023. This will make its date, but other things that are dated for that month might move to get out of this thing's way. Not because it's a massive juggernaut, but because it is big enough to potentially affect sales. And 2023 is already very front-loaded. So there are a few games that can afford to be delayed a little bit. But I do think that this one's going to be staying. Cameron Monaghan came out. He is the voice actor and motion capture actor for Cal Kestis there. I enjoyed Fallen Order quite a bit. I'm going to have to go through and play through it again. but I'm liking the grittiness of the Jedi series. They're not the clean cut Star Wars movies where like Luke Skywalker with the Rebel Alliance. They might be scrappy, but hey, we're definitely the good guys. There are definitely shades of gray with Cal Kestis here. He's not evil by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not your typical Jedi, and neither was his very reluctant trainer, whose name I can't remember, but she was voiced by Deborah Wilson in there as well, the former Jedi who ended up assisting him throughout most of that game, who is, by the way, in this game during the gameplay trailer. Looking forward to getting a hold of this. Really like the first one. Love to see where Respawn goes of Jedi Survivor. And I have to wonder if Cal Kestis' days are numbered, or he just goes out and Yoda's himself where he hangs out somewhere. Because remember, this is in that time period between the prequel movies and the original trilogy, when the Jedi are all but extinct and still being kind of hunted down. And they don't really make mention of them anywhere else. Now, it's a big galaxy. You don't have to have people crossing over constantly. In fact, one of the reasons why I liked Jedi is, absent one rather major character, which appears at the end, there really is no connection between any other established character in the Star Wars universe. But that name is big enough where he, or rather being a Jedi would be a big enough target on you where the name would be getting spread around. So I'll be very curious to know how they're going to work in Cal Kestis' absence during the proper rebellion, or what he might have been doing at that time. I kind of hope they kill him off. That he dies doing something awesome. I hope they Rogue One his ass. Not because I hate him or anything like that, but because I think that would be a fitting way to cap off his tale. But we will see. You can pretty much guarantee they're going to try to do at least a trilogy of these games. So don't expect that in the second one, but maybe in the third. Another big thing shown off at the Game Awards, Death Stranding 2, featuring older yet just as naked Norman Reedus and Fragile, who you can kind of see in the background there. I'm not even going to pretend to start understanding what the hell was shown during this trailer. It's a Kojima game, so expect some weirdness. It's a Death Stranding sequel that may or may not even be called Death Stranding 2, because they're very adamant on saying that's a working title. All kinds of weird shit with it. There's a bunch of the black oil everywhere, babies, tentacles growing out of the baby jars, and it looks like Troy Baker is once again the villain in it as a guitar playing man with a BB case for a torso where you can see his skeleton in it. I don't know. This shit's weird. I will say I loved Death Stranding. I loved the ambiance of Death Stranding. The plot to itself was interesting, but I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I just liked the... This is going to sound weird, but I liked the game behind Death Stranding. There was something eminently relaxing about just carrying packages from post to post and trying to figure out the most efficient way to get there. There was something, to me, compelling about that gameplay loop. Your opinion might differ, and that's totally valid. I know that not everyone liked Death Stranding. I think it's Kojima's lowest selling title in a very long time. But I am very much looking forward to returning to this world. One thing that is going to be a blow to this game, however, part of what sold Death Stranding to me as a game when I was playing through it was that soundtrack. Mostly done by Low Roar. And unfortunately, a few weeks ago, or I think it's been longer than that at this point, the frontman to Low Roar died at like the age of, he was like mid-40s, I think. Not having Low Roar in the soundtrack to Death Stranding 2 with some new stuff, I think is really going to hurt it. Now, I'm sure they can find something else suitable to put in there, but that style of music with the themes of loneliness and Death Stranding, I think were really top notch. And I would have loved to have heard more of what they did in a Death Stranding 2, but alas, he has passed on. A couple other tidbits coming out of the Game Awards itself. We did have Diablo 4 get a release date of June 6, 2023, trying to go for that 6-6, but not quite 6 connection there. If recent behind-the-scenes reporting is to be believed, the team behind Diablo 4 is being crunched very heavily, and the reason why it has been so long for it to take to come out is because of massive mismanagement. That is if that recent Washington Post article is to be believed. once again, anonymous sources and certain journalists do have bones to pick with any kind of business and any other perceived crunch out there. Could be true, could be not. Use your own judgment. I'm not saying it fits, though, based on what we've been hearing about Activision. Apparently, though, according to that article, this game is supposed to come out originally like in 2020, then 2021, then 2022, then 2023. And from what it is being said, once again, if that article is to be believed, this June 6th day in 2023 is absolutely do or die date. They're not going to delay it again. And I believe that, by the way. I 100% believe that they will not delay this game again. I think that if it is in a garbage state, they will release it in a garbage state. We'll see. They got about another 6 months to polish this boy before it comes out. That said, I am looking forward to it. Diablo, I've always enjoyed the Diablo games. Diablo 3, yes, was very rough when it first came out with massive connection errors and the real world money auction shop and all that other stuff they had in there. But after about a year or so, that turned into a pretty goddamn good game, in my opinion. If you go back and play Diablo 3 now, it feels the way Diablo should. It feels like a fancy version of Diablo 2, which is still an amazing game to this day as well. I'm very curious to see where they go with this, to see if the namesake Diablo even shows up in it at all. But I do want to play it, and you'll be seeing a bunch of things coming in from their open and closed betas between now and launch. They're already doing the pre-order now for $70, mind you, even on PC, so fuck that. They're already doing that big push where if you pre-order it, you get the early access to the beta and all that, so we'll be getting all kinds of leaks from that before the game comes out, I'm sure. Other bits that I wanted to get into from the Game Awards specifically, we had Warhammer 40k show off a trailer for Space Marine 2. First time we've actually seen some solid gameplay from it beyond a couple of little 5-second clips. It's exactly what you'd expect from a 40k Space Marine game. Bunch of bug smashy goodness. It's coming sometime in 2023. Really looking forward to this. I like the first Space Marine a lot. New Cyberpunk DLC, the Phantom Liberty, got its trailer showing that Idris Elba is going to be joining the cast along with Keanu Reeves, who is back. This is going to be the next-gen only DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 coming 2023. The fact that it is next-gen only is what really intrigues me about this, because I still maintain the reason why Cyberpunk had so many issues is because they just refused to abandon the previous generation instead of making it truly next-gen, and they had to build this game to the lowest common denominator. Now, that does not mean that they had everything they promised in there. Cyberpunk has many issues on its own, technical problems aside, including a lot of content that was originally promised that never made it to the final game. However, in its state now, I do find it a very enjoyable game. I'm actually having fun with it, surprisingly. It just needed another year in the oven for patches to come out and put it into a state that I find entertaining. It's still not what we promised, but I'm willing to see what CD Projekt Red can do with a sequel to this game as well. And I'm wondering if Phantom Liberty might give us a little peek as to what they have planned for the Cyberpunk 2077 sequel, which is in active development right now, to kind of let us see what they can do with a next-gen only setup for that game. We'll see sometime next year. One more game announcement that they had that I do want to mention real quick is Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. Not Fires of the Rubicon, just Fires of Rubicon. From Software finally returning back to the Armored Core series. It's been a very long time since we've seen one of these mainstay entries, and we don't know anything else beyond that. We have no idea if they're going to change up the mechanics that were in the original Armored Cores. We don't really know if this is necessarily going to be a spin-off or not. I doubt it, considering that they're calling it Armored Core 6 proper. But that's how little we know about this game. Hell, they could turn it into a mech version of a Souls game for all we know. There's so very little info out there on it. But this has been rumored to be developed by them for a while. From what I understand, it is decently far along. We should see it sometime in 2023. Don't know if it will actually make that date or not. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if more than half of what was announced at the show doesn't slip to 2024 or even later. But that's another topic for another time. Also, of course, you did have one more thing I wanted to mention, and it's not even game related. But let's call out Microsoft here. Microsoft was an absolute no-show at the Game Awards. And we have to, it's at the point now where we have to start asking, where the fuck are the games? Now, they could be holding things back due to the ongoing FTC litigation, which we'll get into next. But Microsoft has been absent of any major release outside of Halo for quite a while. Where's the next Gears? Where's Fable? Where's Perfect Dark? Where's the meat, Phil? Where's the meat, Phil Spencer? And there are a bunch of pictures of him just kind of like grimacing in the crowd, or at least he might not actually be grimacing but the still shot shows him grimacing because you capture a picture at any time and someone looks like they're doing something stupid. But we are at the point where we have to start asking ourselves what the fuck is going on at Microsoft. And the biggest release they have had, Halo Infinite, was hardly a barnstormer here. It had a myriad of issues at launch, still has major issues, still has features that should have been there day one, not added in yet. There is something rotten in the house of Microsoft, and we need to get to the core of it. And I'm really worried that it might be Phil Spencer. Because we can't just point to one studio and say, them, that's the problem. There is something broken at the upper management levels. And after a while, Phil Spencer has to stop doing his... Listen, guys, I know a lot of people love Phil Spencer. I know he's very personable. He seems to actually care about the games. He actually knows things. He's not Jim Ryan, which is very clearly just a numbers guy in a suit that's rolled out to occasionally voice some PlayStation game knowledge, even though he really has very little of it. His favorite game, by the way, at any time, Jim Ryan's favorite game, is whatever the newest selling PlayStation game is. That's always going to be his favorite game. Whereas Phil Spencer, I've seen interviews where he mentions Microsoft games, but he also mentions Nintendo and Sony games as well. So he does know the business. He actually knows games rather than just as a numbers generator. I know people love Phil Spencer, but we need to start holding him accountable for the lack of news going on, because it's not one studio that's the problem. It's a myriad of studios, and he is the head of all of them. And he needs to start answering questions. And I do mean directly, not in the weaselly double talk way that Phil Spencer loves to speak. If you start listening to him a lot, you start realizing this man is a master at saying a lot but saying nothing at all. He will drone on over any inane subject and then completely dodge the question that he was asked, but make you feel like he's answered it. And what needs to happen is a good interviewer needs to get up to him and actually hold him on task and go, okay, cool, that's nice that you think all that, but where are the goddamn games, Phil? Where are they? I like Game Pass. I'll say right now, I actually kind of hope the Activision deal goes through because I want Call of Duty and Blizzard games on Game Pass. I don't want to spend extra bucks for them. Which, speaking of, let's go ahead and go into the next story here. The FTC is officially seeking to block the Blizzard Activision merger. Now, up front, this does not mean that the deal is dead. In fact, I believe that Microsoft will be fighting this very vigorously in court because there's a rather large and sizable kill fee attached that they have to pay out to Activision if the deal does not go through for any reason. So it behooves them to fight this for as long as they can until the bitter end, one way or another. To the actual filing here from the FTC itself. The Federal Trade Commission is seeking to block technology giant Microsoft Corp from acquiring leading video game developer Activision Blizzard Incorporated and its blockbuster gaming franchises such as Call of Duty, alleging that the $69 billion deal, Microsoft's largest ever and the largest in video gaming industry, would enable Microsoft to suppress its competitors to Xbox gaming consoles and its rapidly growing subscription content and cloud gaming business. Now, what Microsoft needs to argue is that them buying Activision Blizzard is not bad for the gaming industry, but it's just bad for Sony. And that's what they've been doing by securing those statements from Nintendo saying that Nintendo and Microsoft entered at least a 10-year minimum agreement for Call of Duty. And then there was Gabe Newell coming out writing his own letter that says, we don't need an agreement from Microsoft. We have faith that they will do what they said, which is even more damning to Sony. And it's very clearly that by leaving them out, Sony is the one driving all this, and has been. It's been very clear from the beginning. So that's one notch in the pro merger argument, is that Microsoft is not necessarily restricting gaming as much as they are just making a decision that Sony will find bad. And admittedly, it would be bad for them. However, the FTC brings up a good point here. Back to the article. In a complaint issued today, the FTC pointed out to Microsoft's record of acquiring and using valuable gaming content to suppress competition for rival consoles, including its acquisition of ZeniMax, parent company of Bethesda Softworks, a well-known game developer. Microsoft decided to make several of Bethesda's titles, including Starfield and Redfall, Microsoft exclusives, despite assurances it had given to European antitrust authorities that had no incentive to withhold games from rival consoles. Microsoft has already shown that it can and will withhold content from its gaming rivals, said Holly Vadova, director of the FTC's Bureau of Competition. Today, we seek to stop Microsoft from gaining control over the leading independent game studio and using it to harm competition in multiple, dynamic, and fast-growing gaming markets. FTC makes a good point. Microsoft in the past said, hey, we're not looking to make any of these games console exclusive. They'll be on everything. And then they came out not too long after the deal was said, and yeah, Redfall and Starfield, Xbox platforms only. They make a good point here. It's a very salient point. What needs to happen now is that a judge is going to sit here and ask that question that I said earlier. Is this deal bad for gaming, or is this deal just bad for Sony? Because if this deal is just bad for Sony, the merger goes through, at least in the judge's opinion. If it is bad for gaming in general, it might get railroaded. What I think is going to happen is that the FTC is kind of strong-arming Microsoft for various conditions. I think that they're going to try to force them to sign a binding legal document of some kind that says, we will not remove X, Y, or Z from gaming marketplaces, specifically Call of Duty. That is the one that is mentioned directly in this little statement here. So that is the one I would consider being what the FTC is concerned about. Take a look at chat here. To be honest, I'm just scared that all this mergers and acquisitions that is bringing us closer to monopoly. In general, I think it would be better to stop the acquisitions to avoid more monopolization in gaming. Here's the thing, Watermelon. My biggest concern is that if the Activision is clearly wanting to sell to someone, the FTC can't keep blocking things over and over again if a company wants to sell. Someone will get a hold of them. And the only other company that can really afford to buy Activision, if it's not Microsoft, is Tencent. Activision has shown a willingness to sell. The deal does not go through. If the deal does not go through, Activision stocks tank, and then Tencent offers them up like half the cost and gobbles them up. And if I have to pick between Tencent and Microsoft, I pick Microsoft every day of the week, twice on Sunday. Yeah, it is the lesser evil. And I don't think it's a monopoly. I absolutely don't think it's a monopoly. Because if you want to talk about like the major, the big boy in gaming, it's not Call of Duty. It's Grand Theft Auto. It's just the long and the short of it. It's Grand Theft Auto. So this isn't, and like Microsoft already said, hey, we're not going to keep it on our platforms only. They'll also be on Switch. They'll also be on Steam's marketplace. They'll be on all the other marketplaces out there. And even Sony. They repeatedly said Sony. But once again, the FTC has said that you said that before and you pulled them anyways. And I will also once again reiterate, I am in favor of the deal going through for purely selfish reasons. I subscribe to Game Pass. I don't own an Xbox, but I subscribe to Game Pass. I would love to be able to play Call of Duty's campaign without buying the actual Call of Duty game. I would love to play Diablo 4 without spending $70 on it. And that's kind of what I'm hoping happens. You just think this will set a bad precedent. Oh, Watermelon, that precedent was already set with Disney. And by the way, that's another one of those things where I look at here, and I think Microsoft can successfully point to Disney and go, what about them? Now, I know whataboutism doesn't necessarily work in a legal sense, but you can use that as a precedent to go, deals of this magnitude and significantly larger have already happened. Look at Disney buying up Marvel. Look at Disney buying up Star Wars. And they can absolutely point at that. And yeah, I despise that too. I do think that the Disney's case is that they actually are a little too big. I think the difference between Microsoft buying Call of Duty or Activision
and Disney buying Marvel and Star Wars, I think one is a drop in the bucket compared to the other one. However, I interact with way more to one than the other. And I've already stated my biases on this one, that I do actually want the deal to go through because of Game Pass. Now, I know a lot of people say Game Pass might be bad for the overall health of the market, and they could be right. But right or wrong, the fact of the matter is that it is here, and it is not going away. So I will take as much from it as I can before I fully transition to only indie games. Yes, I agree. Disney is quite literally a monopoly in some cases. I think the only other monopoly attack you can make is a vertical monopoly as opposed to a horizontal monopoly. In that a studio makes a game. And what a vertical monopoly is that you control the production of something from the bottom to the top, and there's no way to compete against that. Which means in this case with Call of Duty, you make Call of Duty from the ground up. You create the game, you design it, you market it, and then you sell it on your own marketing places. That is a vertical monopoly. Every step of development of that game, you 100% control. Which also means that things like God of War and Horizon can be called vertical monopolies as well. I think that this lawsuit, by the way, is one of the reasons why we haven't heard really much of anything from Sony or Microsoft right now, because as I've said in the past, they are both trying to play the no, I am weak, we need Call of Duty game back and forth between each other. And it's kind of fucking embarrassing because Sony and Microsoft are massive megacorps. They have billions of dollars. Don't tell me that you're weak, you need something. Sony will be just fine without Call of Duty, and Microsoft will be just fine if this deal goes bust. I am adversarial to both of them. I think that they're both fucked up. It's just the deal going through for me benefits me because it gets me on something that I'm already subscribing to. That is 100% the only reason why I'm for the deal going through, and I'll be absolutely candid in that. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down below about this Microsoft versus Sony thing. I know a lot of people are against the deal, and I get that, but just make sure you're aware that Sony is not a victim here either. Just try to make sure that you are consistent in your thinking with the article itself. And I know I'm asking that to people online. Take a look at chat here before I move on to the final story of the day. Someday, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft will own all different studios with all new exclusives. You got to remember Tencent's out there, Embracer Group's out there, NetEase is out there. You have a bunch of European conglomerates like Focus Home Entertainment. That's the one I was trying to think of. Ubisoft is out there. They're big. Ubisoft actually might get sold and gobbled up by someone. Same with EA. Now that I'm thinking about it. But Take-Two's not going to sell to anyone. Take-Two has a Grand Theft Auto. So I don't think we'll ever get a point where 3 people control every single thing that's out there. I don't think that's actually possible in gaming. It's just not going to happen. Back to chat. You do hope that at least the FTC manages to strong arm some good contentions. That's what I think they're doing. I think that they are trying to do a big assault out front to put Microsoft in an arm lock to get them to agree to something. Because Microsoft in the past has successfully argued against this shit. If you're old enough to remember some of the antitrust stuff going around back in the 90s with Microsoft, and they more or less went, okay, and still won. It was one hell of a legal battle, but they won that, and I think that they can win this too. I think that they can make the case of Call of Duty is not the end-all be-all in the video game industry, and it's not. It's a lot of money, to be sure, but it's not the end-all be-all. All right, last story. I tend not to get into culture war stuff, at least on this show. But this is one of those things that I saw, and I felt like I had to mention it. This is from VGC. The article to this and any other story that I've used today will be linked down below, by the way, if you want to take a look at it. Days Gone director blames middling reviews on woke reviewers and tech issues. John Garvin, he is not anymore, the director and writer of Days Gone. He's not with Sony Bend anymore. He's doing his own thing. John Garvin tweeted this theory in response to a fan asking why he thought the post-apocalyptic PS4 biker game didn't get more praise when it was first released in 2019. Days Gone, by the way, is kind of going through a little bit of a resurgence, especially after released on computer and people get a decent copy of that game. We'll get into that in a little bit. 3 reasons, Garvin replied. 1, it had tech issues like bugs, streaming, and frame rate. 2, it had reviewers who couldn't be bothered to actually play the game. And 3, it had woke reviewers who couldn't handle a gruff white biker looking at his date's ass. I'll address those in a moment. Last year, Garvin spoke to the game designer David Jaffe on Jaffe's YouTube show, where he claimed the reason it sold poorly because not enough people bought it at full price. Garvin is now leading Ashfall, which is described as the first true Web 3.0 AAA title for PC console, and the Hedera network, which uses a native energy-efficient cryptocurrency called HBAR. So really not looking to whatever John Garvin's next thing is, because that's a lot of buzzwords that I think will make things crash and burn. And this comes from a guy who actually enjoys cryptocurrency. I think Bitcoin specifically has potential. But when I hear that you're making something using rando crypto rather than Bitcoin, random network, and when I hear Web 3.0, my eyes roll into the back of my head. You might as well have said NFT. Now, let's talk about these 3 reasons John Garvin gave. And I'm going to go up. Or actually, I'll go down. 1, it had tech issues like bugs, streaming, and frame rate. Yeah, Days Gone came out to a mess to reviewers. At a day 1 patch, that made a lot of people suddenly realize, oh, this game runs just fine. But a lot of reviews considered that. And they should have. You review the game that you're given, not the game that it could be. In fact, I wish more reviewers were more adversarial when games are released in a fucked up state, rather than being told, don't worry, it'll get patched out. 2, he says reviewers couldn't be bothered to actually play the game. There is some truth to that. You can see on the Sony backend who has beaten the game or not, mainly because of the trophy system. And some reviewers did not actually finish the game entirely. Days Gone is comically long for what it is. It feels like it's about to end no less than 3 times during its playthrough, and it keeps expanding more and more and more. I liked that. I get it. I understand why a reviewer might go, oh, fuck this, and be done with it. It is their job, however, to beat a game in its entirety before reviewing it, in my opinion. So I understand his complaint there. But when was the last time anyone here bought a game based on a review they read or saw online? I take a look at it. I took a look at them. That helps factor a little bit. But ultimately, what makes me decide if I'm going to buy a game or not is watching people play it online, watching people actually stream it. I have not actually read a review in a 2-3 years at this point. Okay, I see some of you in chat are saying that you do. I don't think that's a majority. I don't think that's the majority by far. I think that is a minority viewpoint at this point. Most people, I think, get their information from streaming these days. And I think that is evidenced by the fact that all these game media sites are going kaboom. We had layoffs at IGN, I think Polygon, Fanbyte went bust, G4 completely shut down, Go Media is having cuts. If people were turning out to these sites in massive numbers like they used to be, they wouldn't be going kaboom right now. And 3, this is the one that I kind of want to focus on a little bit for all this. And 3, it had woke reviewers who couldn't handle a gruff white biker looking at his date's ass. Yes, some of the reviewers of Days Gone were woke. I know this because I know a few of them personally. I've had many conversations with these people, and they are full on in that category. But it was not wokeness that killed your game, John. It wasn't. I have no use for your professionally offended. The activist crowd who tries to find things problematic of everything out there. And in fact, I remember one reviewer specifically calling out that all the freakers, which is their name for zombies, were white. And they were bitching about it when there's actually an in-universe explanation for that being the case, which shows that they either weren't paying attention or didn't play long enough to get to that point. But
going back to my rebuttal of point 2, no one cares. the woke crowd, as you refer them to it as, only care amongst themselves whether or not the game is good or not. For the vast majority of people out there who don't read these reviews, who don't know who these people who review this game are, they just see the marketing and maybe someone playing it online. And Sony sent your game out to die, John. It wasn't because of woke. It wasn't because reviewers didn't play the game. It's because Sony, whoever was running the marketing part of this game, put minimal effort into it, gave a buggy, fucked up copy of this game to reviewers pre-game launch, and the word on the street when it finally came out from those who were listening was that this game is buggy, and then they told their friends, and their friends told their friends. And honestly, at the end of the day, it was a zombie game released 4 years after zombies stopped being the it thing from Sony, or just in games in general. I adore Days Gone. I really liked it. I think it's a solid 8 to 8.5 game if I had it registered on a 10-point scale, which I don't really do all that much anymore. I felt it was way too long. I felt it was about 3 or 4 years behind its time, and I don't mean culturally. I mean just from a setting vibe. It was clear that this game took 10 years to crank out, or however long it did, because it's a product from that time when you guys started developing it. And there are many other open world games that just did what Days Gone did better. I'm sorry, man. I would love to see a Days Gone 2. I love the cast in it. I love the gruff white biker and his date, his wife who had a nice ass. I love both of them. I love how she handles the military commander at the end. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but there are so many things I appreciate about Days Gone. But that game did not succeed because the woke were attacking it. That game didn't succeed because there was nothing that made it stand out and made it worth people's money and time. And this is coming from someone who loves that game. I'm actually thinking about playing it again now that I'm talking about it again. And I'm glad that it's getting a resurgence on PC now that it was released on there. But it's also very clear, John, that you have a massive chip on your shoulder about this, and I understand why. Because it was a very, I can't pronounce that word. It was a very hostile split between you and Sony. And it's very clear that that's what happened. So it's clear, in my opinion, that you are kind of lashing out and doing that. It's not my fault thing. It's everyone else's fault. I get it. And when a game flops or fails or doesn't succeed, it's rarely one person's fault. But it's not because people are woke. And this is coming from someone who not only loved Days Gone, but has little to no use for that crowd. In fact, I think they are actively harming things at this point. But much like how I was going to go off on a rant here, but I'm not going to. A different rant. Admittedly, this is a rant. There comes a point where you just kind of have to move on and realize maybe you made something that people just weren't into at the time. That happens all the time. I hope that you get the credit that you deserve for Days Gone. I do think it's a good game. And if you can find it on PC, get it. I don't think it's worth $60 though, which is another reason why you were going off on this, right? That you were saying people didn't buy it at launch because you need to buy a game at $60. Dude, if my choice is between playing Days Gone for $60 or any myriad of other games that are that AAA space that count between now and then, I'm sorry, dude. I'm going to spend that money elsewhere. $60 is a lot for Days Gone. It really is. Yeah, it is kind of cope. It is kind of coping and seething here, man. And And I hope Asphalt works out for you. But I'm telling you right now, when you're billing it as Web 3.0 with energy efficient cryptocurrency and the Hedera network, you might as well have said NFTs as well. Because all of that shit has the same connotation. And while I believe in crypto, and while I've got no necessarily issue with this Web 3.0 shit, and while I fucking understand that NFTs are here to stay, regardless if you love them or not, you have to read the room, bro. And this, you're already setting your next game up for failure, man. I'm telling you right now. And it is not going to be the woke who did it. And it is not going to be even because it might be buggy as hell. It's because you are putting a bad taste in people's mouths already. So please, I beg you to pull your head out your ass and stop blaming things that aren't to blame here. They might have had a hand in it. Sure, I'll give you that. But they weren't standing there arm in arm keeping your game from succeeding, man. They just weren't. They weren't. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down below. If you agree with John Garvin or not. I'm willing to listen to counter arguments on this, by the way. I absolutely am. I am not 100% closed-minded to what he is saying here. I just think he's off. I don't think he's right. Before I move on to new releases, let me take another look at chat here. The next time someone sees one of these games, they'll think, hey, it's the dude who sells NFTs and blame the woke towards game stars. That's just it, though, too. That's part of what I'm getting at. The only people who are even going to know who John Garvin is are a very small segment of the gaming population. Most gamers don't even go to IGN, let alone see something like this, or let alone see what John Garvin is talking about. All they hear is word of mouth. All they hear is, yo, game is good, or yo, game is bad. That's what sells most of it. That's how come I know the woke didn't kill your game, because the woke, in this case, don't have that much reach. I can argue they have some great reach and other things, but that's a whole nother thing in general. People don't go to a Walmart and go, oh, I'm going to buy this game, but I heard it's socially irresponsible. Maybe I shouldn't. That doesn't happen. They might say they do that, but they don't do that. They just shut up about it. At the worst case scenario, they just shut up. Oh, God. It pains me because I liked Days Gone. And I get what John Garvin's saying. I do understand. I absolutely understand the point he's trying to make here. He's just wrong. He just is. All right, that does it for news, which means we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here with new releases. Out this week, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion on the PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, and Switch. Crisis Core is a remaster of Crisis Core, featuring updated graphics, combat systems, and soundtracks. Follow the tale of soldier operative Zack Fair as he discovers the secrets of Shinra's dark experiments. I kind of want to play this. They really made it look like Final Fantasy VII Remake, and maybe not as graphically intense, but I think this might help with people who aren't familiar with who Zack is, because he was essentially regulated to side stories for the longest time. So if you don't know who this character is, but you really like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think you owe it to yourself to play this game. Also out this week, High on Life, coming out to the PC and Series X. Travel to a variety of biomes and locations across the cosmos, go up against the nefarious Gargamontis and his gang of goons, collect loot, and meet unique characters and more in this latest comedy adventure from Justin Roiland. That's the sticky widget. This game's reviewing all over the place, and it seems to be all coming down to one and only one thing. You either love that Rick and Morty humor, or you fucking hate it. So if you like Justin Roiland, take a look at High on Life. If you can't stand it, stay far away from this game. It sounds very similar to Trover Saves the Universe in that regard, where if you love Rick and Morty and you love Justin Roiland's just humor style, you're going to be all over this. If you don't care, don't play it. I personally, I've got no beef against Rick and Morty, but god damn, do I not need any more of it. I'm fine as I am. Also, finally this week, Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt gets its next-gen update. That should be, I believe, free to anyone who already owns the game. It'll be coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and PC. I do want to take a look at it after it drops on PC just to see what it looks like. I'm very interested to see them doing that. That is one thing. I know I was kind of tearing into CD Projekt Red earlier with their Phantom Liberty thing, saying how Cyberpunk didn't deliver what was promised, and they clearly left things out they said was going to be in there. But they do keep twiddling and enhancing their games for years after they come out, which is why I gave Cyberpunk a second chance after it had multitude patches, and which is why I want to go back to The Witcher 3. I'm very curious to see what this patch does. I love The Witcher 3, by the way, so any improvement to it is just going to be gravy. Looking forward to taking a look at that when I finally get a down moment in games, because there's so much out right now and so much coming. Anyways, that wraps things up here tonight for GamePoints episode 338, and thank you all for showing up. We do stream this live every Tuesday here at Twitch TV/GamePoints at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time if you want to come and join the conversation live like so many of you do. And if you like what you saw here, you know what a streamer wants. Likes, bits, follows, subs, shares, all that good stuff. This is Discord you can join. Link provided down there below somewhere, as well as all the stories that we're going to be talking about and did talk about. And you can follow myself at CapitalistPig21 on Twitter. I will be back Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday with random gaming throughout the week. And then Tuesday with the next episode of this here podcast, where we'll be talking about whatever happens to be dropping this week. Thank you all for showing up. Until next time, I'm out of here.